Can you hear me? Is it better? Okay. There you go. So the second song that was being sung today, it actually brought back some memories that I had of going to Dave's place and James, and we watched the World Cup final. Matthew, you were with me. James, you were there, I think, and then obviously there was a few other people there as well. But what happened is the Springboks were winning the World Cup final in terms of penalties that we had kicked. But going back to that second song we sang, when the song goes to say that God robbed the grave, or should I say, he borrowed the grave for 3 days, and then he robbed it, and it gave me such a memory of that World Cup final, because it wasn't a story about theft. It was a story about victory in terms of how he robbed the grave. And then if you go back to the World Cup final, that's the same goosebumps that I got in the back of my neck was when the second try was scored, and the camera went straight to the trophy, and the trophy was being engraved. And you knew at that point, there's no turning back now. The victory was there. England had been robbed. Okay. So what I've got is some slides up on the screen. I'm going to try and verbalize the slides for the recording as well, because my story is being told through these pictures up on the screen. I've also got lots of notes, 10 pages of them, that we put together last night, and thank you to Kerry for helping me with that, and Jordan for doing the verses and all that, and during my preparation. So what I'm going to do is there's a part that I'm going to read off the notes. There's a lot of it that I'm going to be talking off of the slides, because I want to try and keep it from the heart and not so much as being a prepared talk this morning. But if I do go back to my notes every now and again, it's probably because I feel like I've gone through something so quickly, I must have forgotten some things that I wanted to share. So if we look at what I'm speaking about today, our family, my family and Kerry's family always used to tell us that there's 3 things that you don't talk about. You don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, and you don't talk about money. Okay, so we're in church, so we can talk about religion. I'm sure that it'll be fun amongst you guys. I'm not going to speak about politics, but I'm going to speak to you about money today, and in particular about money and about debt, and obviously relating to my own personal circumstance. Okay, so let me just read the introduction over here. Matthew, if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a photograph of a picture that's actually inside my house. So it reads, "Every family has a story to tell. Welcome to ours." So we thought that was applicable to my story this morning, and why I wanted to share that, because I wanted to reiterate that this is my story. It's not me telling you how to live your story, but I'm going to share with you our story, and then if you want to learn from that, that's something that you can take with you. So if I can just go through the opening here. "Every family has a story to tell. Welcome to ours. This is a quote on our wall as you walk into our home, but holds truth for any individual or family. We all have our own story to tell, and we want to share a few pages in one of the chapters that appear in our family storybook. And it is our hope that it will encourage and inspire you, and is in no way meant to condemn you, neither is there any expectation by you to mimic what we do. So thank you for coming and listening, and seeing the ever-present author writing on the pages of our life story. Now, there are stories within stories, as there always is, so some of these pictures will mean a lot more to us than they will to you, but there is a story behind them. There are stories within stories, but our main focus today is to focus on one of the most spoken about topics in the Bible, and that is money. We would like to tell you how God used the trap of debt that we had fallen into, and was meant for our destruction, as a tool, and turned it out for good to teach us many lessons and to draw us closer into a closer relationship with Him." So it's quite awkward having a few people here this morning. In fact, I feel like it would be better if I just say, "Come, let's go to my place and have a braai, and we can all sit around the fire and talk about it." But just please bear with me as I go through this. So let's go into the main slide, please, Matthew. The next one. You might have to close it and click on it. Okay, there we go. All right. So this is the story that I want to tell you today in terms of what we went through in our life. So to start off with here, I've got the word saved. That refers to Kerry and I when we were younger. Kerry, can't remember exactly, but she was about 10 or 12 years old when she was saved in the Sunday school class. Me, much later in life, I was in the army, so I was about 19 years old at that stage when I got saved and I got baptized. So we had the foundation from before we had met each other and before we had been married. We had a foundation. Not a very strong foundation, but it was there. We had both gone through that path. So we got married in 1996, and the top left-hand picture is a picture of a flat, and it actually looks like the flat that we lived in. Jordan, you won't know. Kerry will know. It was a 3-story flat as well, so coincidence. And so we bought that flat, and I was relatively junior in the bank. I was in finances. The guys that know me, I'm in banking. I'm with a big bank, and Kerry was a bookkeeper. So we knew about money. We knew about finance. We obviously didn't learn from it because the story goes on to show how bad we were with it, actually. But what we did manage to learn from buying that first flat is we got into a position where we had actually repaid the bond on the flat within 5 years. Okay, so now we were sitting in this flat, bond-free, car debt-free. We had paid off our car over the 5-year period as well, and we were completely debt-free. And I think what that might have done to us, it might have triggered something in our life to say, listen, we're good at borrowing money. We can pay this stuff back and look how we can succeed by borrowing money. We were never taught by our family or by our school on how to manage money. We were never taught how to do a simple budget to say this is your income and this is your expenditure and this is how much money you got left over. In fact, how the budget started to change was this is your income, this is your expenditure, whatever's left over is how much you can qualify in terms of applying for debt. And then it sort of snowballs from there. And we were both in the corporate world, so it was normal for us to understand having loans and credit cards and home loans and car loans and that type of thing. Okay. So what happened is when the flat got paid off, there were personal circumstances in our life. Kerry's grandparents had just passed on, and their house was in the estate. So we decided we've got a bond-free flat, but we need a bigger place. We want to start a family. We need a bigger place. It's a perfect opportunity for us. So we bought this old house. That's not the house we bought. Okay. So we bought that house. You can see it's quite old. It's not in the best of areas. These were in Durban, by the way. So we bought that house. So from a bond-free position, we now moved about taking a bond bigger than we had in the first place. Obviously, in the time period, the property prices went up. So yeah, we bought this nice big house, and we lived in that house. And if you remember, I told you we were both saved, but there were times when not so much Kerry was always there or thereabouts, but I was sort of drifted away from God at that point. I was at a part in my career where I was starting to take a trajectory up. It was going well. I needed to do certain things. Well, I felt I needed to do certain things in my life to continue enhancing my career, which meant a lot of entertaining, a lot of socializing, a lot of going out, a lot of leaving Kerry at home on her own, all in the aid of trying to be successful and to improve my income, which did happen. It wasn't a failure in terms of the money part of it, but it was a failure in terms of everything else. So based on mostly an emotional decision and the want to own a house, we bought our first home from a deceased family member's estate. The house had held mostly happy memories and looked forward to starting and raising a family here, and that was where Jordan was born inside that house. Not that house, but in the house that we bought in Durban. But now we had a bond. We had more expenses to pay. Yes, my job was getting better. I was getting increases in my job, but then it started getting very, very, very hectic. We had a baby on the way. We had me out all the time. We had the home, which needed a lot of renovations. We did things like build walls, retaining walls, and we built like a parking area for a garage, because while we were living there, my company car, plus we had a tenant in a granny flat, his car got stolen as well. So we had to spend money on this. And we even put a little swimming pool at the bottom of the house as well. What do you call those things? Those plastic pools? Not a proper swimming pool. Anyway. All right. So the renovation started, and Jordan was born, and we realized that the area had become very unsafe. So we also realized at that point that we need to find something better. We needed to move to a better area and get a better house. So we sold that house, and we went and we bought our dream home in a nice suburb in Durban, and our bond just went up again. So yeah, we were sitting with this what Kerry calls the entertainment house. So because we were in more debt, it put more pressure on us, but also because my career was still going up, we felt okay. I was earning more money, I could afford more debt. It was okay. So then what we did is then we decided we weren't satisfied with that house. We need to do more. So we open planned our lounge, we redid our kitchen, we built this fantastic entertainment area. I mean, it really was good. It was like a thatch gazebo. It didn't look like the third house either, but you get the picture. The thatch gazebo had like a railway sleeper bar counter. We had a TV screen inside the thatch. The party started after I got home from work on a Friday night, and they finished on a Sunday morning, generally with Kerry cleaning up after everything. But it was a time of my life. This was the place that we loved. We loved it. And because we enjoyed it so much, we weren't really noticing the stress that the debt was putting onto our family. And when I was given an opportunity to be promoted, suddenly we realized we need the money. Even though we love this house, we need the money, and we had to move from Durban to Pietermaritzburg to take up this promotion. On top of that, Kerry had to give up her job in Durban when I'd gone up to, we could afford that at that stage, and so now she was not going to be working, although she did have a part-time job while she was there as well. And because all the previous 3 properties that we had bought, we bought our dream home, which is the bottom right-hand corner one. Again, that is not the dream home we bought. I wish it was that home, but you get the picture again. And this house didn't need a thing done to it. It didn't need a brush of paint. It didn't need a wall bolt. It didn't need anything. It had everything that we could possibly hope for. The problem was that we were living a lifestyle up here already now. And without Kerry working, and with me getting a promotion, it was sort of expected that the lifestyle now had to increase. So we cranked it up. We took more loans. We took more credit cards. We took increase in our bond. In the other house, we had bought a new car to upgrade the car that we had. We never saw our debt as a problem because we could make the installment payments. And that was the normal way that we grew up, and we believed that it was okay. It was in that Pietermaritzburg house that Kerry had recommitted herself back to Christ. I had gone the opposite direction. Kerry was baptized in the house, and I was baptizing a lot of the other establishments in Pietermaritzburg, and trying to keep up with my work life. And it slowly just started to part Kerry and I. There were a lot of tension. Matt, I forgot about you, boy. Sorry, you were born up here. Okay, previous house. We had 2 kids, and it sort of became the matter of I'll go out and get the money. Don't worry about me. You look after the kids at home, and I'll just make sure that I'll keep things going at work. But what happened, there was a lot of entertaining, and a lot of going out, and a lot of partying, and a lot of functions, and the like. So that happened. Okay. And then I don't know if you remember, that was, I forget what year it was, but that was the year that the markets had crashed. Interest rates on bonds went up to like 27%, and Kerry and I were maxed out completely. So things had really got to a complete low. In fact, now we'd got to the point where the income that was coming into the house was less than the expenses that needed to be paid. And because of that, you just sort of get deeper and deeper into debt to chop up the income for your expenses. And actually, my life had started coming off the rails. So in hindsight, if a few of you, or if you guys come here before, you will see sometimes that I can't even stand for 3 songs while we're singing in church, and I battle picking up the tables and stuff. But it was at that point that I had a back operation. I had gone away for a golfing weekend down to the south coast. I think it was Margate. It's funny how you remember these things. I was on the 3rd hole playing my 2nd shot, 180 meters to the green, and I had a 3-iron in my hand. Gee, how's that for detail? I didn't even remember. I realized that. So anyway, I kept my eye on the ball, and I played this shot, and I lifted my head, and my golf club hit about half a meter behind the ball. And as it did it, my back just went like that, and I hit the ground, and I couldn't move. So that was a Saturday morning. So the rest of the boys' weekend, which was Saturday night and then drive home on Sunday, I was flat. I was on my back. I couldn't walk. I got back home from the golfing weekend, and I was literally walking like that. I was crooked in Pietermaritzburg. The golfing accident was previous to that, but I was crooked in Maritzburg. I was literally like that. I was going to work like that. I'd walk into my office like this. And eventually it got to the point where I'd realized that there's a problem here. We've tried everything else. We tried physio and we tried chiropractor and whatever, and we went and I had the backup. So there I am, sitting in hospital and needing my staff to come and visit me so that they can wheel my bed out into the garden so that I could have a cigarette every hour. And the one day they wheeled me back and everybody left, and then this man rocks up to my bedside, and I knew it was Kerry's pastor. I'd been to church with him before, so I knew he was. And boy, was that awkward, this man standing over my bed praying. I was like, this is so embarrassing. Who's watching? It's terrible. But anyway, this guy came a few times, and he prayed for me. And then the one day he just left me the book of John. It wasn't a Bible. It was just a small little book like that, and it was just the book of John, and he left it with me. I don't think I read it. I don't think I've ever read it, but he gave me that book. So I was sort of at that point in my life where I knew I was saved because it happened to me in the army. I knew the basic principles of Christ, and I was fortunate that I was being saved, because maybe if I didn't have that foundation, it wouldn't have actually had any impact on me. But I realized that something had to give, and that there was something wrong with this. And it just so happened that very, very shortly after that, I was offered a promotion to Clarksdorp. People say he gets promoted from Maritzburg to Clarksdorp, but it happened. Okay, it was a promotion. And in hindsight, what that effectively did, it took me away from all that mess that I had in Maritzburg, all that bad influence, all that bad memories I had. It took me away, and it put me into Clarksdorp. And I remember arriving in Clarksdorp. It was a bank house. Didn't even need to have a bond. The bank paid for a house for me. So everything was looking good. I went up earlier. Kerry and the family came up afterwards. I think Kerry was with me for a day, and she was looking for some people that do homeschooling. She went into a bookstore. She just happened to ask a lady in the Christian bookstore, and the lady said, "Joel, there's a man who's a pastor of one of the churches here. It's the only English church in Clarksdorp. And I think his wife does homeschooling." Sorted. So we found a church, and we found homeschooling families up in Clarksdorp, and they were English. Babe, you must just put your hand up if you want to add in, eh? Okay, yeah. So even at that point, Kerry was strong in her faith. She was going to the church. I wasn't. I was still partying a little bit here and there, but it wasn't quite as bad as it was in Pietermaritzburg. And the one day, Kerry, I can't remember, but I think you had a church picnic or a church brow or something in a park in Stilfontein. And I was returning back from the 2010 World Cup soccer match, and I'd taken a client to go watch the soccer match, which was in Rustenburg. It's about a 3-hour trip. And the client, one of my managers, had to nominate their top client. So this guy had nominated, I can't remember his name, but he was a Muslim guy. So I had to spend 3 hours in the car with this guy all the way up to Rustenburg and 3 hours back, while this guy shared with me about his faith. And I was listening to him in talk. And I was thinking to myself the whole time, something's not adding up here. Something just doesn't sound right. Sort of my understanding of God and his understanding of God are the same. And that confused me because he's Muslim and I'm supposed to be a Christian. So that led me to ask some questions. I arrived at the picnic that Kerry was at, and I spoke to the pastor. Asked me how was the trip, and I told him. And I said to him, I had this Muslim guy in the car, and then I just started asking him questions, and he started giving me answers, and things started clicking into place. And then I started after that going to the church as well. At that point, we still had the bond in the house in Pietermaritzburg, and we were still maxed out in terms of our debt. And we had got to the point where we had put the house on the market, and if this house, no, we hadn't put the house on the market. Sorry, we're at the point that if we had 2 months left, and if we didn't make a payment on the bond, we were going to be handed over. And it was at that point that the people that were renting the house from us approached us with an offer to buy the house. So we took that money that we had. We were living in bank-owned property. We took the profit from the house and we repaid all our debt, completely debt-free. Second time in our life that we had been debt-free. The first time when we had the flat, and the second time when we had moved to Klerksdorp. So twice we had gone all the way up to the max point, repaid all our debt, and then all the way to the max point and repaid our debt again. You think we would have learned? So what we did now we were sitting saved. My career was at the highest it could ever be in terms of that. We had friends that lived out in sort of farm areas in Klerksdorp, and it was Easter. I remember it was one of the Easter long weekends, and we were driving back from their house, and we had heard that there was this farm for sale. Not sure how we got to hear about it, but anyway, probably looking at adverts. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we were going past it. So it had a long driveway. Stunning, you guys. You must see this house. It had a long driveway going up with these olive trees. And we get to the gate, and the gate's locked, and nobody's at home. And inside the gate is this piece of paper shoved like that. So I thought, well, let me just go see. Maybe we can get the person's name. I'm curious. Maybe I shouldn't have looked at other people's posts. But anyway, I open up this thing, and I can see that it's a letter from... It's an open letter. It's not even an envelope. So from Absa Bank. And it was handing the farm owner over. He had to pay 2.3 million rand. And I'm giving you that figure. That's the only figure that I probably speak about today. They were handing him over for was it 2.7, sorry? 2.7 million. So Kerry and I thought, well, there's just no ways that we could ever afford 2.7 million rand in that time. And we drove off. How it happened was then we'd found that the farm was going on auction. So we approached the sheriff, and he said to us, well, you need to pay a deposit and you can go to the auction. Kerry and I had come to a figure, 770, for a bond that was owing 2.8 million. But I almost sort of accepted that Absa Bank would never accept that figure, because it's so much lower than what the people owed them. So maybe there was other arrangement that was made, I don't know, and the auction started. And the guy started, I think he started about 650. 650, and that guy went 660, I went 670. And this is, within like seconds, I went 770, and the guy went, sold! And it was done. And like Kerry and I sat there waiting, but nobody else went and bid 780. We could not believe our eyes that this had actually happened. So we actually just sat there for a while on the chairs. Okay, I think Kerry was crying. And we just sat there, and then I looked at Kieran and I said, love, we just bought a farm. Can you believe it? It's a 12-hectare farm. And that's the real picture. Okay, so that's the first real picture of the farm that you're going to see. It was always our dream to live on a small holding. It felt like that we'd been led into the desert. We found it by chance and bought it at an auction. I'd been in the bank for 20 years, and we wanted to do something different. So I resigned from the bank. After working in the bank for 20 years, I resigned to take up farming full-time. Nancy, if you can go to the next slide, please. And these are the real pictures, okay? So here we were milking a cow for milk. We had chickens that were providing us with eggs. We had sheep that was giving us meat. We had pigs that was giving us meat. Kerry had a huge, big vegetable garden. really big vegetable garden that was giving us vegetables. We were both now strong in our faith after me being baptized back into the church again. And things were really, really looking good. We were strong. When we bought the house, we walked into it, and there was like this long passageway that goes down the side of the house and leads to another sort of big room. And as we walked in, there's one of these huge, big full-size snooker tables, those proper ones that you have to actually dismantle to carry. But even more so, this building was a hall, much similar to this, maybe half the size, okay? With stained glass windows, with like a kitchenette area over there, and another bedroom on the back of it. And Kerry and I both looked at each other and said, but this is a church. This is not a room, this is a church. It was a church. So our pastor had, we didn't have anywhere to have night services, so we only had day services. So our pastor had, what do you call them? Pews. Thank you, James. He had pews that were stored somewhere. So when we got the pews in, they fitted perfectly to have it gap, pew, gap, pew, gap. And then we filled that up, and that became our church for our church. So things were looking fantastic. For the first years, it was like our honeymoon phase. We did the farm up the way we wanted to. I used my entire pension to invest it into the farm, to buy proper quality breeding sows, the female pigs, and a couple of boars as well to breed with them. There was a time on that farm where we had 450 pigs on the farm. It was looking good. It was looking fantastic. We had 60 sheep. We had 10 bull calves, which is the cows. Kerry was doing about between 100 and 200. We were actually going to go up to 400 at one stage of the broiler chickens. So we were doing that as well. Kerry was selling eggs from our runaround chickens on the farm as well. And things were looking fantastic. And you can see in those pictures, I mean, like I said to you, there's a story within a story. And each one of those pictures has got a story that I can tell, which I won't tell. And it was looking so good. Matt, if you can go to the next slide, please. By the time we got into the third year, there's our broiler chickens. There was a winter, and the pipes in the wall froze that used to feed the chickens the water. I woke up the one morning, and all 200 of our broiler chickens that we had were dead. The pipes burst, and the water had gone and frozen onto the floor, and the chickens were in an enclosed area. They couldn't go anywhere, so they died. Now, if anybody knows anything about farming, what happens with animals is you buy the animal, and then you've got to feed the animal a lot of money before you can get to the point that you can sell them. Those chickens were almost ready to be sold. So we had spent all that money on the chickens, and now they were all dead. So we had lost all that money. That was our third year, and disaster struck further. We got a disease called E. coli amongst the pigs. Within months, we had gone from 450 pigs to maybe about 20 that we still had babies. I'm talking about. We still had the sows, and we were starting to lose the sows at the same time. We had no money. We had fed all these pigs. The bill was probably coming to about 100,000 a month to feed them. We had to then open up accounts with the feed company to buy the feed, so we got to that debt. We had to borrow money from Kerry's sister. We had to borrow money from my mom. This thing was going pear-shaped. We were stretched emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually. I remember the one day, I didn't know it until afterwards, but the farmer's 12 hectares was not huge, but if I got 2 hectares that way and Kerry goes a hectare that way, we're quite far apart. But apparently I was under a tree on that side and I was crying, and Kerry was under a tree on that side and she was crying, and we were both praying, saying, God, what happened? It was there. We had it. Everything was working. We were close to you. We never got far from God in that time. We can never say that it was because of our relationship with Him that it went bad. But God did provide after that. There were days on the farm where we just had no food in the house. We didn't know what to do. And then somebody would knock on the door and say, listen, can we buy 12 eggs? So Kerry would sell 12 eggs for 12 rand, and I could go to the shop and buy ourselves a loaf of bread, and then we'd come home with that loaf of bread and eat that bread with whatever was left in the cupboard. Or they'd buy chicken. We had chickens that we could sell. I put 20 rand petrol in the car to get to the shop from the sale of that chicken so that we can buy some food. So God always provided, but He also did take away from us. But by some miracle, we realized that we got to the low point. I needed to get back to earning a salary. So I approached my old boss, and they agreed to take me back in the bank at the salary that I was on. And like I said, I was already at a high point in the bank. I was earning a good salary. The only job they could offer me was 2 positions below what I was on, but yet they offered me the same salary that I was on there, which was fantastic. So what I did as soon as I got that job is I increased our bond to pay off all our debt, and we were debt free. We just had the bond on the farm. So for the third time in our lives, we were completely debt free. I think we would have learned from that. Sure, I feel like I'm talking too long here. I'm okay for time, eh? All right. So then I got a promotion. At that point, after being in the bank for only 9 months, I got a promotion, and it moved us to the Eastern Cape. We lived in King Williamstown. We managed to rent out the farm because we still had the bond on the farm. The bank gave me a house in King Williamstown, so I could live there for free. But then the guy that we rented the farm out to decided he's not going to pay us the rent, and then we had to spend money on a bathroom and spend money on other things. I can't find it. Okay, so there were other things. There was an earthquake that happened on the farm that shook the whole farm up. There was pipes that froze over again. We had cables that were stolen off the farm. There were all kinds of things that we had to spend money on, and with that came a lot of expenses. And we dug deep, and we dug deep, and we dug deep, and we dug deep, building ourselves up to that debt again. We were sitting in King Williamstown one day, and we were thinking to ourselves, and we speak about it often. You know, if only we had done this on the farm. If only we had done that. If only we didn't buy the farm. Would be something that would come out of the mouth, and then we both go, no. That farm was important in our life. It's something that needed to happen. But King Williamstown was good for us. We got into a church in King Williamstown. Kerry and Jordan were involved in the youth of the church, so they were leading the youth. We got to learn a lot from the youth inside that church, and we were close with God. Things were looking good spiritually. Eventually, the bank offered me a promotion again, and this promotion was now the highest that I'd been in the bank, and it was a move from King Williamstown to Port Elizabeth. So Kerry and I discussed it, and we said, listen, we're at this point now, we have to, because we can't afford, the people are not paying the rent in the farm, we're stuck in debt, we need to move. So off we moved to Port Elizabeth. We rented a house in Sherwood for 6 months, and during that time, we actually got to a point where we didn't repay it all, but we got to a point where we managed to repay a lot of our debt, and it became controllable. And after 6 months, we decided we need to buy the house, which is the house that we're living in at the moment. And so then we bought that house, but it was a bit of a fix-me-upper. To be honest, we had to do a lot of work. So we put a kitchen in. We took down all the walls in the house. We cleared out the entire garden. We painted the whole house inside and out. We built a wall outside the front. Heaven knows what else we did to the house that we did that to the house. Oh, we built a granny flat as well. At that point, our debt then was higher than it had even been when we were on the farm, and we lost all our pigs. We'd so quickly gotten back into the debt, it was frightening. We were literally living from temp loan to temp loan. If everybody knows what a temp loan is, you can borrow on Friday and pay it back on Monday at double the price that you borrowed the money on. Then all of a sudden the farm was sold. It was a blessing. We got you say no? Yeah, and before we moved into the other house. Oh, yeah, so there was another period in between that. We sold the farm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let me just get back on track there, because that's rewinding a little bit from what I said. So basically, when we sold the farm, we sold it for double the price that we had bought it for. So we had used all that money to pay our debt. So that was the third time in our life or the fourth time in our life that we repaid our debt. So while we were in the PE house, with all the renovations that we'd done in the house, and we got back into the debt again, I was a senior person in the bank, and I used to take some of my staff out into the country, and we used to go visit clients and visit branches in the country. And one day we were driving in my car, and I had a burst tire while we were driving with my managers in the car. And I had to put on a brave face for them, because I couldn't say to them, "Oh, what are we going to do now? I don't have money to buy tires." That was the last straw in terms of Kerry and I saying, "We've been in debt so many times. What are we going to do about this?" I had to phone my mom, and I said, "Mom, listen, I'm stuck in Graaff-Reinet. I don't have money. I've got people with me. I need money to buy tires." I couldn't get hold of her at first. I was stressing. I had to sneak the conversation so my staff didn't hear, which was just under 2 years ago, by the way, probably. But eventually my mom lent us the money, and we put the wheels on, and then we came home. At that point, Kerry had started listening to a podcast by a guy by the name of Dave Ramsey. He's a Christian guy. So when I'd got home and we were talking about the story, Kerry and I both realized now enough is enough. Time out. We can't do this anymore. So every single night, and Matthew and Jordan will remember the music of Dave Ramsey, because we listened to his podcast over and over every single night. The tune will be ingrained in our heads forever, I think. But basically what Dave Ramsey talks about, and Matthew, if you can go to the next slide, he lists the things that are good about debt. Now, these are the things that are good about debt. Because he's going to take notes. Okay, so I'll wait while you take the notes. Okay, have you got all the things that are good about debt? All right, okay, those are them, by the way. That's a blank slide. There's nothing good about debt, and he teaches you it's good about. Now, I work for a financial institution. It's my job to sell you debt. Okay, it's my job to fool you by rewarding you with a rewards program that allows you to get into debt to earn points. Okay, that is what I do. I'm in business banking, and that is what I do. But that is what is good about debt. There's nothing good about it. So I'm getting to the end now. Matthew, if you can go to the next slide. So we followed what's called a Dave Ramsey program. This is what he tells you to do. To step one, they're called the baby steps. Step one is to save up. It's dollars, obviously, but if you want to convert that in terms of rands, you can do it how you want to do it. To first of all go in and save money. Okay, and the reason why you do that is that while you are trying to get out of debt and you get a flat tire, you want to know that you don't have to take more debt to pay for the tire. You want to have that. You want to have that savings. Then step two is the pay off debt. To us, this is the biggest step. Step two is the hardest. Is the hardest step to do. So you've got to do a budget, and this is how we did it. So you take your income, you take your salary, and you put it on a piece of paper. You take all your expenses, and you put it on a piece of paper, and you see how much money is left. And whatever that money is left, the same day as you get paid, you take all of that money. You don't keep any of it, and you put that into your debt. So the next day, when the friends come around and they say, "Come, let's go have a cup of coffee," you say no. And you don't have to explain why you're saying no. No is a full sentence. You just say no. And we had bought groceries as part of our expenditure. So we had groceries for the month, but maybe we would run out of milk or a little bit of electricity at the end of the month, or a little bit of petrol. And literally, we started selling off everything inside our house. the stuff that we didn't use. A table tennis table, for example. Fantastic when we got it, but it eventually became a table in my tool shed. An exercise bike. Did we ever use the exercise bike? I doubt it. Kerry had taken out plants, and Jordan had taken out plants from the garden and photographs of them and sold them online. That paid for bread and milk many a day. Would come home and Kerry said, look, I got 100 rand. This is all the time where I'm area manager of a large bank, and we have to rely on plants being sold just to buy bread and milk. So my income didn't necessarily increase, but we did sell off a lot of the assets to pump into our debt. We did try and increase our income by selling plants and that type of thing. And I even sold my leave. I didn't take my leave. Leave has got a financial attachment to it. I don't know if you guys were, but I sold my leave to the bank, and they paid me out for my leave, and I put that into my debt. This started in August 2019. Okay, so we've just gone past August 2020. And we were sort of doing this plan-ish. You know, we were doing Dave Ramsey's plan, but we would still do a little bit here. Doing that. And eventually we went to Durban for was it Durban? Cape Town. We went to Cape Town, and we just weren't really following the plan. And when we got back from Cape Town January, Kerry and I said, listen, we can't do ish. We can't do Dave-ish. We must do this full thing. So in January 2020, and this is fresh, because this is like this year, guys. In January 2020, we decided we're going to pay off our debt. The bank was good to me. I did manage to get a decent bonus. I did manage to get some extra funds out of the bank. So much so, and with all the money that we had budgeted for, that we had finished step 2 by August 2020. So from January to August, we had paid off. Guys, it was a substantial amount of money. I just want to, I don't want to exaggerate it in a boastful way, but I want you guys to know that the situation was dire. So if we could pay off that amount of money in that period of time, anybody can do that if they just followed the correct steps. On top of that, we had a 3 to 6 month fund. So 3 to 6 months is basically what is your expenses? Can you cover it for 3 months? So that became a fund. On top of that, we had money for Jordan and Matthew's university. Done. If you want to go to university, Jordan, you can go to university. Okay. The bank it was a blessing to us that we were into that position. We're on step 6 now in our journey. We're sitting in December 2020. We're on step 6. My bond today is higher than when we bought the house. Not much, equal. Say equal to when we bought the house probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But that bond will be paid off in 5 years in terms of how we're operating at the moment. So that is the period that we are in. The other thing that I want to mention, step 7 is give. That's not tithings, guys. Okay? Tithings was before step 1. So in other words, when you're doing your budget, so if you're going to spend 2,000 rand on groceries and 1,000 on electricity, when you do your budget, you start off with your tithing, and you say, this is how much I'm going to tithe this month. Then you put all your other expenses, and then whatever's left over after that is what goes into your debt. This giving is now you're in a financial position to be able to give to others, to be able to help other people. And that's the dream, that's the goal, that's the target that we want to get into, that we are able to give back to others. From this story, I think that's the last slide, Matthew. Oh, no, there's one more. Sorry, this picture is a photograph of our family. What Dave Ramsey does, he does something that's called a debt-free scream on his podcast. And I encourage you guys to Google Dave Ramsey or go into YouTube and listen to his debt-free screams. What he does, he tells you the stories. He interviews the people that have repaid off their debt, and they do a debt-free scream. They do a countdown. They go 3, 2, 1, and then the whole family screams, "We're debt-free!" And you can just feel that release of people being debt-free. But he's in America. I wasn't going to borrow money to fly to America to tell him this. So what we did is we took a photo of this and we posted it on his Instagram page. I'm stupid when it comes to social media, so I didn't know why he wasn't responding to me or whatever. But apparently I just have posted it on his page. He probably doesn't even know it's there. But how today's talk came about is because Dave is on Dave Ramsey's page, and he saw that we had posted it, and he knew the journey that we had been on, and he had then obviously asked us to share it. So that was our debt-free screen. We took this picture in August. I think it was the 21st of August this year, and we sent that off to Dave Ramsey, and for us, it was a burden off of our shoulders. And the 5th time in our lives that we've been debt-free. I want to again say to you, it's got nothing to do with you get into debt because you go far from God, and you pay off your debt because you're strong with God. There was no fluctuations that match the fluctuations of our debt. God was always there. There were times when we were close to God and we got into debt. There were times when we were far from God and we repaid our debt. It had nothing to do with that. God was always in our life. He was always there from a certain point. That's the end of what I'm going to share about today. Like I say, it's just a testimony. It's not a preach. I hope that you can gain something from it. I hope even the guys that are listening can gain something from it. I just want to close to say, if you'd like to find out more about the steps to reach the financial freedom and to live this debt-free lifestyle and need help with budgeting, etc., Kerry and I as a family would like to give you the opportunity to approach us and to talk to us. And like I say, our circumstances are not the same as yours, so you can't mimic what we did, but we can use your circumstances to help you in your situation. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for today, God. I reach out to you now, Lord, and I pray, Lord, please, the message that I've shared today, will you allow it to reach people in the right way, in the way that it was intended, Lord God, that nobody would feel that their circumstances are so bad that they can't be helped out of the situation. Lord, we just pray that you will open their hearts, Lord God, and help them to understand that you're always there. Lord, that you don't accept debt as a means, Lord God. It's not the way you intended to be. Lord, and if you can just help everybody that heard this message to understand that, Lord. Thank you for being amongst us this morning. Lord, I pray that you will be with us through the rest of the week, and may you bless this day. In Jesus' name, amen.